Hello, I'm Tim Rogers. You are watching Kotaku.com. It's got more beef than SmackDown and enough gunfire to burn a shack down. I pity the fool who backs down from Crackdown. Crackdown 3's release lurks in wait 2 weeks from the moment I sit here in front of this microphone, so it feels punctual to talk about Crackdown 1. It's only $9.99 used at GameStop. It's free to download on Xbox One. It sure isn't difficult to track down Crackdown. While Crackdown first arrived in February of 2007 for the Microsoft Xbox 360, the developers originally planned to release the game in 2005 on the original Xbox. Seeing as its development straddled both consoles, I have always considered Crackdown Xbox, the video game. Crackdown arrived 1.25 years after the Xbox 360 launched. Crackdown arrived 3 months after Gears of War and 7 months before Halo 3. This thus represents a metaphor of astrological proportions. Tonally, spiritually, and temporally, Crackdown stands between Gears of War and Halo. In the dominational early days of the Xbox 360, publisher Microsoft Game Studios' plan shone with cold diamond clarity. They conspired to generously ladle hot, wet money into the shapely vessels of every popular video game genre, crafting due diligent Xbox-exclusive franchises that would sit in luxury atop every base like a throne. They had racing games, they had shooters, they had even signed a deal with Hironobu Sakaguchi, the creator of Final Fantasy, to produce 2 original Xbox-exclusive Japanese-style role-playing games. Microsoft Game Studios' plan required project management skills tantamount to orchestra conduction upon multiple newborn Titanic franchises, displaying a perfect ballerina balance between artistry, frugality, and punctuality. However much provable success resulted or did not, we need only glance at the likes of Lost Odyssey to respect at least the gumption of this strategy. Microsoft Game Studios' public relations department might have called Crackdown an Xbox-exclusive, open-world action-adventure. Curious online onlookers broke the code and called Crackdown a Grand Theft Auto killer. For an attempted murder of Rockstar's prize franchise, Microsoft chose perhaps the best possible weapon. Crackdown developer Real-Time Worlds' CEO David Jones had designed games for British developer DMA Design, dating all the way back to the 1980s. David Jones was the game designer of Lemmings. That's the original Physics Are Hilarious video game. David Jones worked on the original Grand Theft Auto. Despite its creative pedigree and a whole lot of daddy's money, Crackdown did not kill Grand Theft Auto. Crackdown 2 definitely did not kill Grand Theft Auto. Real-Time Worlds' APB didn't kill anything except critics. Crackdown 3, which is currently being finished up by 3 development teams, all in sunny Britain, seems to have used its many years of development to find a new path. Crackdown's franchise eyes at long last are unclouded by murder hunger. And that's all well and good. I will play Crackdown 3 as soon as I can get my well-washed hands on it. Then I'll tell you all about it, because that's my job. In the meanwhile, let's talk about how Crackdown the First planned to take on Grand Theft Auto and philosophize about why it failed to take the crown. Real-Time Worlds' CEO David Jones said that the game did not quote-unquote look good in screenshots. He described it as a game player's video game. Players needed to play it in order to understand it, much less like it. Crackdown's characters and cars look like a Grand Theft Auto box art came to life. The game's setting, Pacific City, is an even colder beast. The city is all hard lines and bad colors. It's dark all night and dark all day. Ugly street lighting beats down on trash-plastered asphalt. And you know what? The ugliness of Pacific City fits. Crackdown gave game likers of 2007 a glimpse of a Grand Theft Auto-like open-world drive-and-shoot action-adventure that was politically, thematically, and atmospherically about something. Crackdown doesn't put you in a boring modern city full of boring innocent bystanders. Crackdown doesn't thrust you into the middle of a supercomputer's machine-learned rewrite of a stack of HBO Cliffs Notes. notes. Crackdown whisks the player into a bad future. Gangs run rampant across a filthy dystopian hexscape where the only solution to violence is louder violence. In this grim epoch, the cops can jump. Through the power of science fiction, every dead officer's memories teleport into the skull of a fresh clone at the moment of their death. As the latest golden boy in the police force's genetic modification program, it's your job and your right to prowl on down Clown Alley in Growlin' Sally, perpetrating one hot, delicious, necessary evil after another upon each and every idiot who can't figure out how to obey the law. By the way, Growlin' Sally is literally what I called my police car back when I used to drive a decommissioned Ford Crown Victoria Police Interceptor. And yes, I did choose the name Growlin' Sally because it rhymed so well with prowling on down Clown Alley. I only ever said that by myself, usually when driving the car at night. As you jump and shoot and drive and kill, an iron-voiced narrator lays it on thick, where by it, I mean pitch-perfect sci-fi satire. Back when Crackdown came out in 2007, the tone of the narration instantly delighted me. In 2019, it strikes me as even better and subtler than I'd at first given it credit for. Crackdown's narrator expertly glorifies and condemns its own brutal police violence at the same time. It's joyfully close to Verhoeven.
Now let's show these gangs who's boss. Peacekeepers recently captured this intel, downloading to your personal network. Now, your projected probability of success with the removal of the Los Muertos kingpin has now increased. You hear that music, Agent? It's obviously a cover for criminal intent. Get over there and shut that party down.
It likewise evokes the great British tradition of satirizing America, exemplified in 2000 AD comics' thematically similar character, Judge Dredd. Speaking of British works satirizing American culture, Crackdown arrived a full year before Grand Theft Auto 4. Crackdown's developers might have looked at Grand Theft Auto 3, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, and Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and attempted to discern a pattern. They might have wondered if the next Grand Theft Auto game would focus more on plot or on playgroundishness. Crackdown put all its money on playgroundishness. The developers indeed created a quote-unquote game player's game. The cars are heavy, they drift with wild purpose. The shooting feels fantastic. Strafing is effortless. Unlike the recent console Grand Theft Autos as of 2007, in Crackdown you can aim with the analog stick. You can lock on with the left trigger, and then flick the left analog stick up, down, left, or right to target different wound receptacles of your immediate future gunshot victim. Shoot the gun out of a guy's hand. Shoot a guy in the leg to stop him from running away. Shoot a car's tires to stop it from running away. In perhaps the most game designerly touch of all, Crackdown's cops can jump higher and farther than an Olympic kangaroo. When I showed a friend the Crackdown demo in 2007, he asked,
"Why can the cops jump so high?"
To which I replied, "Why can Mario jump so high? And how did you get into my house?" Jumping in Crackdown is perfect. You start out with a perfectly reasonable third-person 3D action game jump, though as you acquire the agility orbs scattered throughout the landscape, your jump power grows, and grows at a rate it is hilariously challenging to keep up with. It feels just mechanically quirky enough to aim the jump, and its falling arc is just heavy enough that mastering it feels like a delightful struggle. The developers obviously had so much fun with the feel of the jump that they crafted every block of the world with the purpose of inspiring the player to jump forever. This gives the game a texture not unlike the vast, loot-littered level designs of the ancient Amiga games its creators developed in the prior decades. A nearby brightly glittering agility orb might distract a player from a mission target. Upon climbing to the agility orb's tantalizing perch, the player glimpses a constellation of additional orbs twinkling across the Jungle Jimmy landscape. 11 years before Sony's Insomniac's Marvel's Spider-Man, we had a carefree, fast-paced, stylized, and fanciful AAA open-world game with addictively wild locomotion physicality. Speaking of physicality, even the melee owns. The more you kick dudes, the farther your kick victims fly. The more you shoot, the less your shots scatter. Everything levels up. Unbeholden to the responsibility of utmost realism, Crackdown is thus able to turn Grand Theft Auto's core design concepts into a playground for players. Grand Theft Auto has a few safe houses for players to unlock at relevant points in the story. Crackdown has dozens of supply points, which, once captured from the gangs, become respawn zones and save points. Because Grand Theft Auto's story is relatively believable, it gives players a realistic city, with realistic roads and traffic behavior. Crackdown, on the other hand, is a constant, sizzling freak show for wacky mechanics, and thus gives players a world where most of the pedestrians are murderers, and all of the rooftops are aligned to be jumped across while yelling. David Jones and his expert team had devised that Grand Theft Auto found explosive success because it empowered players to tell one another fantastic stories of their digital exploits. Thus, Crackdown's design mission statement aimed to weaponize this water cooler discourse. Crackdown's designers' primary goal was to empower players to do such wild things in such a big video game that they would acquire an urgent medical need to tell someone about these wild deeds as soon as possible. This all sounds very quaint from the lofty heights of 2019, the share button era, in which a guy who yells a little bit too much can be worth millions of dollars because he's a little bit faster than a lot of other guys at pressing a button to build a rickety hobo shanty out of joyless cartoon boardwalk fragments. Crackdown's developers predicted the weapons-grade power of sharing your wildest game moments. They just happened to do it about a decade too early. Crackdown's developers made the perfect game for live streaming in an era before live streaming. Meanwhile, back in 2007, Rockstar was hard at work on Grand Theft Auto 4. They were going all in on cinematic storytelling and believable atmosphere. They were making their cars heavier than the cars in Grand Theft Auto 3, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, and Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. They were beginning a gravitation toward hyper-realism that continues even today in games like Red Dead Redemption 2. When Grand Theft Auto 4 arrived a year after Crackdown, it gave players a new high bar for virtual realism. The old cackling glee with which players recommended Grand Theft Auto 3 to their mates arose again.
Dude,
Said a chorus of Grand Theft Auto 4 players.
you can just ignore the missions and have fun, dude.
Much as human brains in the film The Matrix rejected a more utopian prototype, action-loving game-likers rejected Crackdown's narratively contextualized hyperviolence. Crackdown's narrative, as Real-Time World's CEO David Jones put it back then, existed to quote-unquote reward fun, to, as it were, turn the violent act of killing a guy by throwing another guy's dead body at him into its own bucket of feedback loop feeding experience point. They designed around the idea of Xbox achievements. They designed for the most sticky-beaked cranny poking of game players. They made Crackdown for people who would never play it, then go on to start YouTube channels on which they play Minecraft. Crackdown's goal is to kill the bosses of the 4 gangs. The gang's bosses are out there in the city. You find them by having fun. In Grand Theft Auto, shooting an innocent person is deviant behavior. In Crackdown, shooting an innocent person is extremely difficult, what with how many murderous criminals are on the loose and shooting at you. If you throw a rock in a parking lot in Crackdown, you're bound to hit a serial murderer. It turns out the players of violent video games in the year 2007 might have liked deviant behavior more than they liked having fun with fine-tuned mechanics. Or maybe Crackdown didn't set the world on fire because video game players just don't want to be cops. Even cops who can jump. Man, you know what they should have called this game?
Verticops.
You know, Microsoft Game Studios offered me a job in 2006 when I was still working at Sony Computer Entertainment Japan. During a friendly lunch meeting, I told the guy that I would take the job if they would let me retitle the game Crackdown 2100 Jump Street. That's not even a joke. I actually said this. The guy actually did not know what 21 Jump Street was because he was a Japanese guy and he'd never seen it. I told him it was the TV show that made Johnny Depp famous in the 80s, and he was like, oh, I like Johnny Depp. And then I was like, yeah, I mean, everybody in Japan likes Johnny Depp. And then he was like, so would we have to get Johnny Depp to be in this game somehow? Because he's probably really expensive. And I was like, no, I'm just making a joke. We're not, this isn't a serious conversation. And he was like, oh, I see. Anyway, I went into their office once, and I just shook a bunch of guys' hands, talked to a bunch of guys, looked at some stuff, had my hands on my hips. They shielded a bunch of screens from me because they knew I worked for Sony. There was never even an actual job interview. They just called me a week later and said, hey, we want to hire you. How much money do you want? And I told them how much money I wanted, and they said, oh, that's a little bit too much. How about this? And I said, oh, that's a little bit too little. And they said, how about this? And then I turned them down because it would have involved like an extra train transfer from my apartment, and it would have added like 20 minutes to my commute. Though as I sit here thinking aloud about this into a microphone right now, 2 points come to mind. One, with the money they were offering me, I could have definitely afforded to move really close to their office, and their office was in a really nice neighborhood that I would have much rather lived in than where I was living at the time. And second, I could have saved Crackdown. It might have been an esport by now. YouTubers would be living out brutal kangaroo police satire death matches instead of jumping out of hot air balloon buses wearing clown wigs. There'd probably be a movie series starring Terry Crews. I love that guy. Maybe we would have gotten Johnny Depp. Maybe we wouldn't have. I actually like the 21 Jump Street movies, so I would be okay if Crackdown had just been Verticops. If I'd been in charge of the global marketing, Verticop 6 would be coming soon, and it would run in a crystal clear 4K resolution at a silky smooth 60 frames per second on the Xbox One X. Instead, we'll have to settle for Crackdown 3. You better believe I'm going to cackle like a clown while I crack it all down, because I was born stupid. However, I will not die hungry. Video games forever. Kotaku.com.